Good morning. So, something that makes us prone to toxic narcissistic relationships in our life is when we have toxic or narcissistic family members, especially parents. And I know this because other things have transpired in my life. It's kind of like the adult equivalent of believing in Santa and then being told there's no Santa. Um, so definitely if you have kids, don't keep the volume up. But anyways, so yesterday my narcissistic family was trying to get me to drive a couple of hours away to hang out with them on Christmas, and we have not been on really good speaking terms since July, I would say. So barely any texts here or there, just, kind of family updates or how people are doing, and that's about where we end the things at, no real conversations. So they haven't had access to information and things from us, for me or my son, again, since July. So we've been going on and on about our lives, and they have this thing where Christmas Eve is their day. So we always used to go to their house on Christmas Eve. There was like a whole routine, a whole tradition, which was all fine and well, and we liked it. And I've been doing this since I was a kid. So when my kids were little, I would take Christmas Eve day off. And if I wasn't able to take Christmas Eve day off, my children would spend Christmas Eve day with my parents, which was, again, fine and well, because that's what you do when you have kids, and Christmas traditions are important. So case in point, in 2006, my son was diagnosed with intractable epilepsy. And actually, he was diagnosed in 2004 when he had his first seizure. But in 2006, I had started praying because I was told that he wouldn't live to see age 10. And at one point in time in 2006, Make-A-Wish called me for him a couple of weeks before Christmas. So I was out shopping with my youngest son, who was a baby at the time. He was like in his car carrying seat. And I was at Walmart picking out Christmas gifts, and Make-A-Wish called me. And then they started talking about my son and how he was qualifying for Make-A-Wish. And I don't know, I lost it in Walmart, like in the aisle. Like I went over in an aisle and cried in the middle of the store, because they basically said, he qualifies for Make-A-Wish, and because they didn't anticipate that he would live much longer. Because the specialist had told us, like, he wouldn't live to see age 10. And to just prepare for the worst, basically, is what they told us. But I didn't give up hope, and I ended up, like, researching and taking him to different neurology things and stuff. But anyways, the moral of the story is, on my birthday, 12/21, in 2006, I was talking to one of the ladies that went to a local church, and I had gone to church a couple of times. But that was when I was saved. And it was the first time, that I had said the prayer to be saved by God. And because of God and the way he's worked in my life and in my son's life, my son will be 26 in February. So sorry about that. I still get a little bit emotional. But anyways, I had found God. So on Christmas Eve that year, I took my sons to a candlelight service. And that year, my parents told me that I had wrecked Christmas because I was taking them to church at Christmas instead of spending time with them. Even though Christmas is why we celebrate God, but whatever, Jesus, all the things. And I know that, like, in certain biblical terms, that Jesus's birth was technically in the spring and all these other things. But anyways, the moral of the story is, I had wrecked Christmas because I had chose to do something else instead of go along with my parents' wishes. So there was that. Flash forward to now, and I'm working all this overtime, working all these days, and my parents were like, well, what time are you coming up Christmas Eve? And I tell them, I'm working late on Christmas Eve. If my son and I come up there, we're not going to be up there till 9, because we have to pick up my adult son, my other son. who lives in a different direction away on the way up. So then I get a text stating, well, why don't you just come up Christmas Day? And then we went into a circle of discussion via text. So I initially had said, I think my oldest son will be spending Christmas Day with his father. And then they were like, well, come up Christmas Eve. And I was like, well, could we maybe do this on Sunday? Since Sunday is my day off. And then I have time to do all that. That way I can spend Christmas with my son here at my own place. But of course that wouldn't work because then that's me wrecking their Christmas Eve. So we went into a discussion and I was basically like, okay, so if we come up on Christmas, then you won't get to see my oldest son. And that was where I left it. So about a half hour later, after all of this discussion, and I know that I've upset my parents, my stepdad, who I've called dad since I was 4, who is like an extreme narcissist, but he's calculated, texts me and says, good news, I've rented us a suite near you. It sleeps 6. There's a pool, there's a hot tub, all the things. We're going to pick up your oldest son on the way down. And we will be there in Mount Pleasant. We're going to get like a Bob Evans feast. And then we can all just hang out at the hotel. So there's no mess and nobody has to deal with anything. And so for the first time, and I don't know when, I kind of got my hopes up for Christmas Eve because the last few years have not been great. And there's a whole other story that goes along with that. But anyways, the moral of this story is things just have not been great between me and my parents, my mom and my stepdad, for Christmas for quite a while. And it's caused kind of a rift in our family. But I've made I've done the work to just go along with it because it's been 46 years-ish, or, more than 40 years that I've been doing this. So I'm like, I'll just do the work. It's fine. We'll make it work, and I'll just sacrifice what I need to get up there on their day and make it work, even though it's usually later in the evening because I'm working. So anyways, I get excited and something in my brain stops me, like the way he worded the text. He used the words, of course, and then he was like, good news. And I was like, I feel like I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so I'm just not knowing what's going on. But like in my stomach, I'm like, I think something's going to happen, or I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I go to bed hopeful. And I wake up this morning to a text that's asking me about my son and everything. And so I'm messaging back and forth with my stepdad, and I'm like, so does, my oldest son know that you're picking him up on Christmas Eve? And I get back a text that basically says, well, I haven't told anyone else yet, but I'm waiting to see if this works out because of this, and that. And so then my stomach dropped because we had been messaging for quite a bit about, regarding plans and things for Christmas. And then he started asking, personal questions about my son, about me, about all these things. And then I realized that this was a manipulation tactic from a narcissist to gain information. I then called the hotel to see if the reservation went through, and I used their last name. And of course, there wasn't a reservation. And then people wonder, like if something nice happens to a person that has been dealing with all of this narcissistic abuse in their life, like why, when you're treated like a normal human being or you're treated nicely, why would you think the other shoe would drop? And it's like, this is the way I was raised. So I guess the moral of the story is that when you're raised in a narcissistic environment or you're with a narcissistic partner, we are under the impression that love needs to be earned. And in that case, it's not actually love. So So anyways, that's what's transpired in my life. Sorry for the long story. We are children of God. We should not have to be begged. Love should not have to be earned. Love should be unconditional and frequently just given because we love, not because it's needing to be earned. So there's more to come. I'm definitely going to do further research on all of this. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to help everybody who has to deal with this so that you don't have to go through this, because it is like the worst kind of psychological warfare. And again, I'm just realizing, like, through this experience, this is the reason that the people that I have brought into my life as partners, as, husbands, are narcissists, because I am always the one giving everything to the point where I have nothing. And I give so freely, just expecting or wanting to be loved, that I'm missing the whole point. That love is just love, and love should come from a pure place, and it shouldn't have to be earned. So if you're in this situation, ChatGPT has been a super huge, amazing tool for me. It helps you come up with responses. It helps you do things. But I hope in this holiday season, if you're dealing with this, that you don't have to deal with the same tactics that I do. Because the worst part is getting your hopes up. Like, that is the worst. It's one thing just knowing holidays and I have to do this or that, sacrifice and whatever. And again, everybody has to compromise at some point. That's not a thing. That should be normal. But when people make it their mission to take you down just to gain information, it's super, like, the worst kind of warfare psychologically. So if you're dealing with this, just know that there's another person out here going through it. And if you ever need to chat, I'm going to post up the email link. And I'm going to start helping people walk through this. So again, I'm not like a licensed counselor. I'm not any of that. But I've been through all of these things through hell and back through all of my life. And so I've gained some wisdom and insight into this and to help cope. But then you would have someone to talk to, and it's free, of course. So again, just I hope and pray the best for everybody. And it's very hard to go through all of this in the sense that, like, I'm going to have to maybe cut them out of my life. And with the way that my mom has been treated throughout this whole relationship, this has helped me learn how to deal with abusive, like, ecosystems. So, like, when the narcissist doesn't get their way and they go into a fit of rage, I've been dealing with that since I was like 4. So I've just been through it all, basically. And my mom is a classic example of, well, that's just who he is. That's just what we do. This is just the way it is. And we need to do better as humans, because no one should have to deal with this at the holidays. Holidays can be stressful enough, especially like financially right now, like groceries and, insurance and rent and electricity and all the things, like, that's stressful enough on its own financially, and like not maybe being able to get the things you would like to get for your family because of the costs. But like, to have to deal with this kind of abuse is just a whole other thing on its own, and it shouldn't be a thing. So we need to do better. So check on your people. I'm going to do everything in my power to help people not have to deal with this or any other kind of abuse at the holidays. Whatever it takes, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to get it together. And hopefully maybe next year at this time for the holidays, there's like I'm able to get a hall and like do a dinner or something for people that are dealing with this or don't have a place to go or are fearing for their safety or things like that, for free, just to help. And again, I can't make any promises right now, but I will do everything in my power to make this happen. So, love and light. I hope everybody has an amazing day. I am off to work. Thank you.